Every day, all year round, a coastal express liner leaves Bergen. There is always a lot of cargo from Bergen, so loading the ship takes several hours. Not many cars are expected for this voyage, so the cargo to be unloaded first is placed on the car deck. Most of the cargo is placed on the A deck, under the car deck. The sacks of animal fodder are on the lower cargo deck, the tank top. In Bergen we saw the coastal express liner MS Nord-Norge returning from the Antarctic. After we have left Bergen, the passengers gather in the Vesterålen lounge aft on deck D. They are welcomed by the guide, Anna Kristin, who demonstrates the use of the safety equipment.
Kit to keep you warm. Dette altså en termodrakt, og ordet sier hva det betyr. Det ikke en overlevingsdrakt, men det en drakt som skal holde en tørr og varm.
I have to see.
Oh, yeah, I'll take your head back. So, of course, in an emergency situation, the crew will be up on E deck, which is our safety deck. Yeah. You can see. Boka om turen, verdens vakreste sjøreise og utfluktsbrosjyren, kommer dere til meg å få fremme etterpå.
The paintings in the background are by the Norwegian painter Carl Erik Harr. Having passed Florø, Måløy and Torvik during the night, we arrive in Ålesund the next morning. From the mountain Aksla we have a good view of the town and the ship. In the summer months we make a side trip to Geiranger. We don't dock in Geiranger. A smaller boat comes to pick up passengers who wish to take a bus trip back to Ålesund. All passengers receive an embarkation card to be used every time they have been ashore. Passengers are also asked to disinfect their hands when they return. The reception is on deck D, after the gangway. The staff can help with tickets and cash withdrawals. We proceed on deck D. Here is the hospital. They have a heart starter. One of the mates on every trip is familiar with how to use it. On deck D, there are also washing machines that the passengers can use. The officers on the bridge have 6-hour watches. The captain is available day and night, but normally he is on duty from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. and from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. with the first mate. The MS Vesterålen is well equipped with some of the best navigation and safety instruments. Left is the screen for electronic navigational charts, and on the right the screen for a 10 centimeter radar. Navtex continually receives weather forecasts and other safety-related information. Even with good instruments, the ship is required to have ordinary paper charts, and the officers must know how to use them. The main panel. To the left are the handles for controlling the two main engines. Most of the steering can be done from here. The officers can choose between an automatic pilot and manual steering. The position of the rudders and other information can be seen on the panel. A GPS receiver gives the ship's position with great accuracy. A VHF radio and an ordinary telephone. The panel for controlling the two stabilizers. The first officer, Kjell Lorentzen, relieves the captain and takes the watch from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. The ship's electrician, Ottar Jørgensen, who is responsible for all electric equipment on the ship, is up on the bridge. On the left is a switch panel for the lights on deck. At the top, the switch for controlling the windscreen wipers and the panel for checking the temperature in the cargo holds. On the port wing of the bridge is all the equipment needed to maneuver the ship when docking. Captain Yngve Johannessen steers the ship out of the harbour.
Arne, nå går det 70 forover og midtskipsord. Vel på bakken.
The tour guide prepares all the excursions.
Yeah, it's through Hurtigruten. That's who they found for us.
You pay with your card?
Next morning we are in Trondheim, where we stay in port for 4 hours to load and unload cargo. There is plenty of time to see the town. The large stained glass window is made by Gabriel Kielland, who worked on the windows of the cathedral from 1904 to 1934. There is also time for a trip to the Museum of Musical Instruments at Ringve. This estate used to belong to the Wessel family. The Norwegian naval hero Petter Wessel Tordenskjold was born here in 1790. The museum was established by Victoria Bakke, a Russian refugee, who was married to Christian Bakke and lived at Ringve. We leave Trondheim and pass the small island Munkholmen, Monk Island. The first monastery in Norway was built here in the 11th century. 20 minutes before Agdenes, we pass Fosen Mekaniske Verksted, the shipyard where the coastal express liners MS Trollfjord and MS Midnattssol were built. Kjeungsskjær Lighthouse from 1880, the only 8-cornered lighthouse in Norway. The lighthouse keeper lived here with his family until 1947. After this we passed the windmills at Valsneset. Then we reach Stokksundet, one of the narrowest sounds we sail through. It is not strictly necessary to pass through this sound, but in weather like this, it's a great experience. We pass some installations for aquaculture. We are back on the bridge again. In the middle of the bridge there is a large panel. Let's look at some details. The emergency telephone goes to the engine, the steering engine, the bow thruster room and the emergency generator room. The VHF radio telephone. Further on, the control panel for the fire doors and watertight doors with alarms. This is a mask to protect against smoke, and here is a SART, a search and rescue transponder. In the chart room, there is also an extra GPS and a panel indicating which fire detector is activated. Once on every trip, the passengers are invited to the bridge.
Okay.
Above the bridge are the antennas for the two radars. The satellite antenna for the mobile telephone is also there. Antennas for VHF, Navtex and ordinary radio. The aerial dome above the false chimney is for receiving TV signals by satellite. Here is the emergency direction finder transmitter. If the ship were to sink, it would float up and start sending the ship's calling signal. The duties of the captain include not only commanding the ship, there is also a lot of office work to be done. Behind the office is the captain's cabin. Tourists who want to see the second largest glacier in Norway, Svartisen, can take a trip in a smaller boat, then continue by bus to Bodø to rejoin the ship. Ørnes has been a commercial settlement since 1794. Further in is Glomfjord, an industrial area. We have passed the Arctic Circle, and Neptune comes aboard for a baptism ceremony. We are so far north, the water has frozen to ice, a chilly surprise for some of the guests. We travel on and arrive in Bodø, the largest town in the county of Nordland, with 40,000 inhabitants. Bodø became a town in 1816, but a decent quay for steamers was not built until 1904. The trapdoor to the cargo hold is hydraulically operated and controlled by the crew. At high tide, we need an extra staircase by the gangway. It's time to unload. The cargo is on pallets. A truck on the car deck places the cargo on the pallet lift. It is picked up by another truck ashore. Cars can drive on board and into the car lift, which takes them down to the car deck. Some passengers choose to take a more exciting trip to Saltstraumen, a narrow sound where the rise and fall of the tide creates whirlpools in the water. Saltstraumen is 150 meters wide. Large quantities of water are pressed through 4 times a day. After Bodø, we cross Vestfjorden, where we come face to face with the impressive Lofoten Mountains, known as the Lofoten Wall. We arrive at Stamsund, which has an important fish processing industry. The large gable painting, painted in 2003 by the American artist Scott Toe, is quite special. Sometime after leaving Stamsund, we meet the southbound coastal express liner MS Nordstjernen. She was built in 1956 and upgraded in 1982-83. This is the oldest and smallest coastal liner still sailing, only 2,194 gross register tons. As we are approaching Svolvær, we meet a car ferry from the same shipowner as our own ship. Further on, we pass the bronze statue of the fisherman's wife waiting for her husband. Around Svolvær, we see the wooden structures where fish are dried. Svolvær is the capital of Lofoten. Fishing and fish processing are the main industries. Several artists have also settled here. Quite a few paintings by one of these artists, named Dagfinn Bakke, are to be found on the coastal steamers. We enter the Trollfjord at night, which is not on the usual schedule for the northbound trip. Next day we reach Harstad, home to the shipyard Korbø Mekaniske Verksted, where MS Vesterålen was built. The town has 23,000 inhabitants and has a large fishing industry, as well as dairy and meat industry. In Harstad we meet MS Trollfjord, built at the shipyard Fosen Mekaniske in 2001. This is the largest coastal express liner, 16,140 gross register tons. The Panorama Lounge, The Lighthouse, is on the top deck. A group from northern Norway entertains us. The Trollfjord Lounge is mainly used by short-distance passengers. This is Finnsnes, a trading centre from 1846, but with trading traditions dating back to the 15th century. Finnsnes has a factory making fishing equipment, as well as other industries related to fishing. Ottar Viking was a close friend of King Arthur the Great. The sailor controlling the lift has a good view from his position. These are the cabins in the older part of the ship. The restaurant staff have to make the beds as well. When MS Vesterålen was only 5 years old, the aft part of the ship was rebuilt to make room for 70 new cabins. As we are sailing towards Tromsø, a boat belonging to the same company as our ship passes us. Tromsø has 64,000 inhabitants, many different industries, and a university situated further north than any other. The first church was built in the 13th century, called Santa Maria close to the heathens. The town is known as the Paris of the North because of the elegant ladies. As one could expect, the Polar Museum is located in Tromsø. The first engineer, Asbjørn Larsen, is responsible for all the technical equipment on board. His office is just behind the reception. The whole engine is controlled from this room. The two handles correspond to the two handles on the bridge and control one engine each. In the control room we also find the control panel for the electric equipment. 1740 kilowatt can be generated on board. Beyond the control room there is a well-equipped workshop with a lathe and boards for tools. Next we see the Alfa Laval separators for lubrication oil and a water heater, powered by electricity or steam from the exhaust boiler. Furthest in are the compressors for the air condition. After passing through the separators for the lubrication oil, the oil flows through these filters. There are two 4-stroke main engines produced by Bergen Diesel, each with an effect of 3,200 horsepower. At normal transit speed, they work at 750 revolutions per minute. The speed must be geared down to 240 revolutions per minute, which is the propeller speed. The engines are routinely inspected. The air inlet, the turbo loader, and the exhaust pipes for the port main engine. At the back we see the oil mist detector, which warns of buildup of smoke in the engine room. The gears to the starboard and port main engines, respectively, reduce the number of revolutions per minute from the engine to the propeller shaft. The gears are identical, but are seen here from different angles. One of the main propeller shafts. The exhaust kettle produces steam for use in several places on the ship. A heat exchanger ensures the right temperature for the lubrication oil. An overview of the engine room. On the left, the smallest auxiliary engine, then the two main engines. A 550 horsepower auxiliary engine produced by Bergen Diesel, with a 380 volt or 50 Hz generator from NEB for the electric power supply. The separator that separates oil from bilge water. At the back on the right, we see bottles of compressed air for starting the main engines. Filters for cleaning ballast water. An oil-powered kettle for steam with 7 bar pressure. Fuel valves powered by compressed air. Seawater filters for the heat exchangers in the cooling system. Between the filters there are anodes. The seawater flows through the heat exchangers for the cooling water for the engines. The compressors for the cooling and deep freezing system for the cargo hold. Condensers for the cooling and deep freezing system and for the air condition. In the foreground, a filter for lubrication oil which removes soot and other impurities. In the room for the auxiliary engines, there are 2 engines from Bergen Diesel with generators from NEB, each with an effect of 630 kilowatt. This is the main power supply on board. All fuel oil must first pass through these Alfa Laval oil separators. The fuel oil is heated and filtered before going to the engines. The compressor for tools operated by compressed air is also in this room. The emergency compressor and bottles for compressed air for valves and air for starting the auxiliary engines. Aft on the lower deck, we find the steering engines and the hydraulic system. We also see a fire extinguishing pump for seawater. A bit further up is the foam-based fire extinguishing system for the engine rooms. We are out on deck again, approaching Havøysund. The 16 windmills produce enough to supply 6,000 households. Havøysund has 1,400 inhabitants. Most have moved in from the islands further out. Outside Havøysund we meet MS Lofoten, a veteran from 1963. A ship of 2,597 gross register tons, built at Akers Mekaniske Verksted. After Havøysund we reach Honningsvåg. Honningsvåg has 2,500 inhabitants and is the center of North Cape municipality. The North Cape Maritime School is located here. The North Cape is situated at 71 degrees 10 minutes and 21 seconds north. The North Cape is known as the northernmost point of Europe, but this is not entirely true. Even further north is Knivskjellodden at 71 degrees 11 minutes and 8 seconds north. The North Cape Museum in Honningsvåg shows the culture of the coastal areas in the county of Finnmark. The bird safari is an exciting excursion. We take a small boat from the mainland to a nesting cliff. Large flocks of puffins and cormorants nest here.
Birds, those are there.
We were lucky to see some seals.
I'll be by going up to the west side and he'll be next to us right hand side. Sergeant 7 years old to have coffee and
No fire on board this time, only an exercise. While the passengers are on their North Cape excursion, the crew go through several training exercises to ensure they know what to do in case of emergency. As we sail into Kjøllefjord, we are impressed by the mountain Finnkjerka, the Finn church. Kjøllefjord has been a trading port since the 16th century. Vadsø is the last stop before Kirkenes. Vadsø, with its 5,000 inhabitants, is the capital of Finnmark County. Kirkenes was originally a mining town, with the largest iron ore mines in Norway, operated by the company Sydvaranger. The blue building is the shipyard Himek, which also repairs Russian trawlers. At Kirkenes the ship turns, and we are now a southbound coastal express liner. The MS Vesterålen is 6,261 gross registered tons, with a length of 108.5 meters. The ship was enlarged in 1988 with 70 new cabins aft, a larger dining room and a new lounge with room for 150 people. It now has 314 berths and is certified for 580 passengers. Vardø is the easternmost town in Norway. It is actually as far east as Istanbul or Cairo. The first church was built in 1307 to show that this was Norwegian territory. Soon after, the first fort was built. The present fort dates from the 1730s. The polar night lasts from 23rd November to 21st January, 59 days in all. On the other hand, the sun is up from 16th May to 29th July, 74 days without sunset. The fort has never seen battle, apart from German air raids in 1940. The only shots that have been fired is the salute when the sun returns after the polar night. The fort is under military command, and the commanding officer has his residence here. We have not quite finished with the engine room. Against the side of the ship, in the cargo hold on the tank top, we find the hydraulic cylinder and the piston rod which thrusts out the stabilizer fins. On the lower deck we find the room for the bow propellers. The electric motors for these propellers each have an effect of 295 kilowatt. The cardan shaft transmits the power from the motor to the propeller, and the hydraulic system ensures correct steering. The bow propellers are underwater, so we don't see them. We just see the foaming water. The tank for drinking water is also in the bow thrusters room. Ultraviolet irradiation kills all the germs as the water passes. The vacuum pumps for the lavatories and the sewage tank are also here, as well as an emergency bilge pump to be used for pumping out seawater. We also have the opposite kind of pump, a fire extinguisher that uses seawater. These two pumps are tested regularly, but there's never been a need to use them. We are up on deck F. The emergency generator is placed here. A Mercedes-Benz motor drives a 10 kilowatt generator with a switchboard that provides emergency light for the whole ship. There is also a battery room that ensures electric power for the bridge and the engine in case the emergency generator fails. On deck E is an air conditioning room. It provides fresh air for the lounges on decks C and D. In the same room we find the hydraulic pumps for the lifeboats and the mob boat. Aft on the car deck is a fog fire extinguishing system for the cabins, engine room and corridors. There is also a grey water processing system for wastewater from the showers, etc. The storeroom for engine equipment is also on the car deck. Here we also find the fuel station for the fuel oil that is pumped on board from installations ashore or from an oil tanker. The workshop for the electricians. Båtsfjord has just over 2,000 inhabitants. There is no farming or forestry, but it's an important harbour for the fishing industry. Fish processing is an important industry in Berlevåg too. The breakwater has been washed away by the sea several times, but the present four-armed tetrapods of 15 tons have resisted the force of the ocean. Outside Berlevåg we meet MS Nordkapp, built in 1996. The MS Nordkapp is a ship of 11,364 gross registered tons, with 490 berths and a capacity of 691 passengers. The coastal liners are built for stormy weather, so this just gives the passengers an extra exciting experience. Outside Havøysund we meet MS Finnmarken, built in 2002 at Kleven Ulsteinvik shipyard. This ship of 15,690 gross registered tons has 643 berths and is certified for 1,000 passengers. We pass Melkøya with its huge processing plant for gas from the snow-white field. Then we approach Hammerfest. Hammerfest is as far north as Point Barrow in Alaska, but there is no town there. Hammerfest got electric street lighting in 1890 as the very first town in Northern Europe. In February 1945, the occupying German forces burnt the town as they withdrew. This small chapel is all that was left. The present church is from 1961. In Hammerfest there are polar bears in the streets. We seem to have travelled further south, but Øksfjord is in fact further north than Kirkenes and Bardø. Øksfjord is the centre in the municipality of Loppa, which means flea. There are 800 inhabitants in Øksfjord and 1,400 in Loppa, and fishing and fish processing are the main industries.
Make a change course around Cape Cod Greening.
Skjervøy has a sheltered location, even though it is quite far out in the Kvænangsfjord. Fishing is the main source of income here too, including fish processing, shipyards for repairing fishing boats, and production of fish farming equipment. After Skjervøy we reach Tromsø late at night. In the distance we see Tromsdalen Church, also known as the Arctic Cathedral. In the church we had the opportunity to attend a midnight concert with the singer Harald Moe. In the background we see one of the largest stained glass windows in Europe, by the Norwegian artist Victor Sparre. We are now in the galley. Stainless steel is widely used. It can be thoroughly cleaned. Small portions for the cafeteria are also prepared in the galley. Food can be cooked in this steam cooker instead of in an ordinary pot. The lunch table consists of a wide range of tempting dishes and requires a lot of work.
Vanligvis bruker man å ta vare på den hele hummer, sant? Som man har å rutte med for å pynte med. Det ser så mye finere ut den hele hummer, sant?
The restaurant can seat 134 guests. At lunch, there is free seating. At dinner, the guests have their regular tables. During the peak season, there are several sittings. The used crockery and cutlery are placed on this table beside the dishwasher. Then everything is placed in special baskets and rinsed before being sterilized. Stainless steel bowls are washed by hand. Food waste is ground in the waste mill. Before going off duty, the cooks clean the whole galley with boiling water. The storerooms for provisions are on deck A, along with extra equipment for the galley. The control unit and the compressor for the cooling and freezing system for the storerooms are in the machine room. Some of the supplies are kept in the large cargo hold for frozen food. The waste containers are also down on deck A. Plastic in sacks, cardboard in a separate compressor, and general waste in this compressor. After passing the town of Harstad, we see Trondenes Church. There has been a church on this site since the 11th century, even before Christianity became Norway's official religion. The present church is the northernmost stone church in the world. Here in Risøyrenna we sail at reduced speed. This is an underwater trench that was made deep enough for the coastal express liners in 1922. It is 4,850 meters long and 50 meters wide. At the southern end of the Risøyrenna, we dock in Risøyhamn. Here we load 100 pallets of garden soil, taken from the peat marshes in the interior of the island Andøya. The pallet lift brings them down to the A deck, where another truck is waiting. After Risøyhamn, we pass under the bridge connecting the islands Hinnøya and Andøya. Next stop is Sortland, with 4,000 inhabitants. There is a factory here that processes fish waste to oils, enzymes and proteins for the cosmetic and pharmacy industries. After Sortland we approach Stokmarknes, the birthplace of the coastal express liners. The very first voyage was by the SS Vesterålen from Trondheim to Hammerfest in July 1893. The trip took 67 hours. Our ship is the third to bear the name Vesterålen. Stokmarknes is a natural home for the Museum for the Coastal Express Liners. The MS Finnmarken is the largest museum exhibit in Norway.
Hello, Bodø Radio.
We board the museum. The chairman of the board of the museum is also the captain of the newest MS Finnmarken. Part of the SS Finnmarken from 1912 is back in Stokmarknes. The staircase up to the first-class cabins, which are not as well equipped as today's cabins. In Stokmarknes, crates of fish are unloaded from the tank top, lower deck. Raftsundet is one of the narrowest sounds in the shipping lane, and 26 kilometers long. Shortly after entering the sound, we come to the Trollfjord, with high mountains on all sides. The two power stations supply the surrounding area with electricity. The fjord is narrow, but with two propellers and two rudders aft, as well as two bow thrusters, the ship can easily be turned around. The Trollfjord is one of the great attractions on this voyage. We only enter for the sake of the tourists. We take part in an eagle safari on a smaller boat. We did see some eagles, but most of the birds were more ordinary seabirds. We dock in Svolvær again. Between Svolvær and Stamsund, we meet MS Richard Hvitt. This ship was put in service in 1993, 100 years after Captain Richard Hvitt founded the Coastal Express liner. For short-distance passengers, there is a cafeteria that serves everything you need. The shop is located a bit further on, with a wide variety of goods. There is a playroom for children and a playroom for adults with internet.
It's not relevant, really, is
No.
On deck D, we find the mess hall for the crew.
I can start to.
There are 2 conference rooms for use by groups.
Just gonna get back. I can maybe just do like this. Yeah, and then I can get into just to look. If we would pick the group, we would we would know that before we started that we could expect that they had higher.
Selsøyvik from the 1700s is the oldest trading place still in use. The mountain Rødøyløven with its special profile is 443 meters high. The mountain Hestmannen is a little hazy just now. In Nesna we are greeted by 2 young musicians. The well-known Norwegian priest and poet Petter Dass lived here for 17 years before moving to Alstahaug. We are approaching Sandnessjøen with 5,700 inhabitants. The gallery in Sandnessjøen displays paintings that are typical of northern Norway. The monument over the priest Petter Dass is placed here because this is the local centre, but he never lived here. According to a local legend, the 7 troll sisters were interested in the troll Hestmannen. They stayed out all night and turned to stone at sunrise. It's absolutely true. Here they are. This is Alstahaug, where Petter Dass was vicar for 18 years, until his death in 1707. The church dates from the 12th century. Next stop is Brønnøysund. Soon after Brønnøysund, we passed the mountain Torghatten with its famous hole. It is 160 meters long, 25 to 30 meters high, and 12 to 15 meters wide at its narrowest. Legend has it that the troll Hestmannen shot an arrow at a troll girl, but another troll threw his hat between them. That is how the hole appeared. Between Brønnøysund and Rørvik, we hold a farewell dinner, as some of the round-trip passengers are disembarking in Trondheim.
Styrke 25 sekundmeter vind og 10 meter høye bølger. Det gjør ikke noe om dere overdriver nok litt, for det er ingen som kan kontrollere det likevel.
Every day, 2 coastal express liners meet in Rørvik. This time we meet MS Trollfjord, the ship we also saw in Harstad. We are back in Trondheim, where we meet MS Kong Harald, built in 1993. This ship of 11,204 gross registered tons has 314 berths. We are approaching Kristiansund, founded by King Christian IV in 1742. This town of 17,000 inhabitants is built on 3 islands. Though there are bridges, there is still boat traffic between the islands. After leaving Kristiansund and crossing the open stretch Hustadvika, we pass the gas terminal Nyhavna. Then we arrive in Molde, where we meet the MS Lofoten again. It is still one of the regular coastal liners and will continue to sail. Many passengers expressly wish to sail on this ship. It has no more than 184 berths. There are people who have travelled with MS Lofoten more than 20 times. When they come on board, they don't have to introduce themselves. The crew knows them. On leaving Molde, we pass the hotel The Sail, 16 stories high. The huge glass facade gives us a good view of our ship. The town of Florø is the last daytime stop before we are back in Bergen, after 11 days of the most beautiful sea journey in the world.